Hello and welcome. My name is Natalie Areola and this is But What Does It Mean? Deconstructing Surreal Art. Before we begin, I wanted to let you know that I have prints of all of the images we've discussed thus far, including the one we'll be talking about today, available in my online shop. If you enjoy my work and these videos, owning a print is a fantastic way of showing your support. The link can be found in the video description and my bio. I want to start today's discussion with a quote from Susan Sontag's on photography. "The camera makes everyone a tourist in other people's reality, and eventually in one's own." This is a very surreal statement, and Sontag actually goes on to say that photography is inherently surreal. We often think of language and the visual arts as being two very different things, but they are actually quite similar in a lot of ways. Both are attempting to express ideas about what it means to be human and how to best go about living one's life. Surrealism in the visual arts draws heavily on literature. This is evident in its use of symbols, which create a sort of visual code that takes on a linguistic form. Rene Magritte was probably the biggest proponent of this idea that images are capable of communicating in a similar way to the written word. In fact, he spent a lot of time meeting with various philosophers and thinkers whom he admired in an attempt to convince them of this. He was not terribly successful until much later in his life when he met with Michel Foucault. Foucault would later on write an essay about Magritte's painting, The Treachery of Images, which he called "This Is Not a Pipe." Magritte sought to imbue his paintings with thought equal to that of language. This is probably why René Magritte is one of my favorite surrealists and the reason that I so frequently look to his work for inspiration. In case you hadn't noticed by now, I love philosophy and language. I actually studied English and philosophy in school, and I still dabble with writing. For me, surreal art is rich in its ability to communicate thoughts and ideas. The wonderful thing about today's image is it was inspired by literature, visual art, and film. While the Sontag quote is definitely the catalyst for the image, it is also inspired by Magritte's use of objects to create a sort of visual language, as well as the David Cronenberg film Naked Lunch, and thus William S. Burroughs, whose work was definitely influenced by surrealism. Burroughs' classic quote, "Exterminate all rational thought," sounds as though it could have been a slogan for the surrealist movement. Burroughs also used a literary technique called the cut-up method, in which he would literally cut up pieces of prose and randomly paste them back together. The David Cronenberg film adaptation of Burroughs' infamous novel Naked Lunch is a surrealist masterpiece which dives deep into the drug-addled mind of a very disturbed man who is suffering with guilt and shame over his own sexuality, as well as the accidental murder of his wife. My image, titled The Tourist, borrows directly from the Naked Lunch film poster. The image itself is fairly simple. We have a man with a typewriter covering his face. His hand is hovering awkwardly over the keys, and there are manuscript pages floating around him. Let's begin by talking about the Susan Sontag quote. "The camera makes everyone a tourist in other people's reality, and eventually in one's own." Obviously, Sontag made this statement in direct reference to photography. But for me, this observation describes a thread in modern society, which this aspect of how we use photography is merely a symptom of. We are frequently seeking experiences in our lives, whether it is the experience of the literal tourist or the experience of embodying certain roles in life. For example, we may seek to be a mother or a writer or an artist. With each of these titles comes a set of preconceived notions and expectations. We have all seen countless representations of what a person who fulfills these roles looks, sounds, talks, and moves like. Does this influence how we embody these roles? And perhaps more to the point, does this divorce us from our ability to experience what it means to be these things? Does this make us a tourist in our own reality? The symbol in our image is a typewriter. The typewriter is an instrument which writers and thinkers use to express thoughts and ideas. But where do these thoughts and ideas come from? They come from our own experiences and the experiences of others. But what if we have spent so much time mimicking what we think our experiences are supposed to be that we have rarely had any genuine ones of our own? And what if we have been so preoccupied with what we want for ourselves that we have rarely seen or heard those around us? Are we then capable of sharing anything authentic? I think you know by now that I'm not going to tell you what I think you should take away from this image, but I do hope to hear your thoughts in the comments. I want to thank you so much for being here with me. I really do enjoy sharing these crazy thoughts and explorations with you, and I hope that they are as inspirational to you as they are for me. Please don't forget to like this video and also subscribe to my channel if you're on YouTube. You can also find links to my online store as well as my email list in the video description. Thank you again, and I will see you next time.